Good evening. I am Lawrence de Lancaster. Tonight's sleep story is dedicated to probably the most powerful and brave woman to ever walk the face of the earth. A woman whose yes changed the world. Before we begin, I ask a favor of you. Please like and subscribe to this channel. And also, an even bigger favor on my behalf. Please share this video. There's somebody out there. She feels half a world away from me right now. And I want her to hear my voice. And I want her to know I'm thinking of her. I would greatly appreciate it. Now let's begin. The quiet night before the dawn. The evening had come softly, like a whispered prayer. The sky above was a deep velvet, dotted with stars, and the moon hung low, casting a gentle light over the land. Inside the modest home, a warmth lingered in the air, though the cool of the night breeze had just begun to stir. Mary had sat by the small window, her hands folded in her lap, her thoughts wrapped around the past days, the sorrow, the grief, the love. Her heart, though heavy with the memory of what had happened to her son, was also filled with an unshakable hope. She knew, deep within her soul she knew, the night was not a time for mourning, but a time of waiting, a time of anticipation. For though her heart had been broken, her faith remained unyielding. The world had felt heavy the days following Christ's crucifixion. The sky had darkened, as creation itself had felt the weight of what happened. The stone had been rolled in front of his tomb, sealing it. And yet in her heart there was a quiet certainty. He would rise. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the silence of the room wash over her. The flickering candle on the table cast a shadow on the walls. The dancing light and dark. It gently reminded her of her son's trial, what her son had faced. But the light, however faint, had always pushed back against the dark. Her thoughts drifted from the days when she held Jesus in her arms as a child, his tiny hands wrapped around her fingers, his eyes wide with the wonder that was presented by the world, a world he created and a world he willingly entered. She had always known from his conception that he was meant for something great, something extraordinary. His life had been a gift to the world, and even now, after all he had endured, she believed. She believed with every fiber of her being that the story was not over. As a matter of fact, she knew it was just beginning. A soft breeze floated through the open window, carrying with it a scent of the distant flowers. Mary took a deep breath, feeling the peace that the night embrace had wrapped around her. The world outside may have been filled with despair and doubt, but at this moment, her heart was at rest. Her son had not just died for the sins of the world, but he was going to conquer death itself. She gazed at a small wooden cross she had made herself, that she placed beside her on the kitchen table. It was simple, humble, and yet she saw this symbol as a symbol of her deepest sorrows, but also a symbol of her deepest hope. After he had been laid in the tomb, she held that cross in her hands on that day, feeling its rough edges, its weight, just as she had felt the weight of his suffering. But that was not the end of the story. No, not for a moment was it the end. She could see it now in her mind's eye. The moment the stone would be rolled away, and he would emerge alive and radiant. The tomb, once a place of death, would become a place of life. The earth would tremble in awe. The heavens would rejoice, and the light of Christ the King would shine into the world, brighter than ever before. In the quiet of the night, Mary could almost hear the rustling of angels' wings, their soft voices whispering of what is to come. She could feel the very breath of God surround her, His presence as close to her as the beat of her own heart. The world would be transformed. The darkness would be undone. Her faith unwavering, she sat steady as she listened to the stillness. She had witnessed His miracles, His love, His power over all things. And now she knew, with all the certainty of her soul, the greatest miracle was about to unfold. Her Son, the Savior, her God, was not gone. He was only waiting for the right moment to rise. She sat there, contemplating the promise of the dawn, and a gentle peace settled over her. Her heart, though still scarred by the events of the past days, was filled with a quiet joy and hope that could not be extinguished. The morning was coming, and with it, the triumph of life over death. She stood from her seat, her feet moving silently across the room, the warmth of the fire in the hearth softening every movement as she knelt beside it. She whispered a prayer of thanks, of love, of trust. Her Son, the Son of God, would rise. He would rise, and the world would be made anew. She gazed at the flickering flames, the light reflecting in her eyes. She had known darkness, but she had also known light. And she knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that the light would win in the end. The dawn would break, the tomb would be empty, and Christ would be risen. With a final, quiet sigh, She rose to her feet and returned to the window, her heart full of peace and anticipation. The night was still, but she felt the stirring of something incredible on the horizon. She did not need to know what was coming. She already knew it. The sun would rise, and with it, the hope of all humanity. And in that moment, as the world slept, Mary allowed herself to rest, knowing that the dawn of the new day was just around the corner. The promise of the resurrection was alive in her heart, and she would wait with hope, with love, and with an unshakable faith that her son would rise. And so she waited, her heart full of love, hope, and faith. The quiet, patient hope of a mother who knew the greatest miracle was yet to come. The hours passed, and dawn had begun to break. Then from behind her, she heard a voice she knew all too well. "Hello, Mother." Good night, and God bless you.